Hello? Oh, wow. Okay. This works. Hello. Okay. This is prop building, and just gonna be completely honest, I'm a little bit really sorry, I shouldn't swear. I'm unprepared for this, and I would blame it on being asked to fill in, but honestly, just kind of who I am as a person. So that's how we go. So, okay. Who's like worked with props before? Just like raise your hand if you've made props or worked with props. Okay, you guys quite possibly know more than me. My specialty is not prop making. It's kind of, I have a project, I want to make it, I want to get it done, and I try and figure out a way to do it. So I have like a little bit of experience in a lot of things, but not a whole lot of experience in anything. So this is very much intro to prop building. If any of you guys honestly have something to contribute, just raise your hand and pop in. You probably know more than me in something. Okay, so I guess just to start off, yeah, so this isn't exactly a how-to, because let's be honest, if you want a how-to, you can probably Google it, and Google's probably a lot better than I am. YouTube's really helpful. Honestly, just if you have the cash to blow, like buying your materials and then making something that's really bad is going to teach you way more than I ever could. But I can teach you like a couple, I did this and messed up really badly, so don't do this when you do it, which is a little bit helpful, I hope. And yeah, so okay. To start off, I think that like there's two main ways that people do props. There's like two genres, I'll just say. The first is like thermo sheet things, and this is like EVA foam Worbla, and the idea is that you buy a big sheet, and it looks like this is a tiny scrap of it, but this is Worbla. It's like plastic, and then when you heat it up with a heat gun, oh, I am not gonna fit in this camera. I am so sorry. Are we recording this? Lamau, hello. Okay, sorry. This is just plastic. It's a little bit flexible right now, but then once you heat it up, it turns into a tortilla texture. And this tortilla sucks. It sucks to work with. I hate it. It's really bad, and I'm bad at using it. But afterwards, it hardens into this. I'm just gonna pass this around, because now that I think about it, it's probably a better idea. Okay, so this is unheated, and this is heated. Just pass that around. It's really bad. I'm pretty bad with Worbla, but you know, let's go. And you can feel that like the unheated one is still pretty flexible, but once it's heated, even those like tiny little ridges that I put on, you should not do that with Worbla, by the way. It's just someone gifted me Worbla. Someone's like, yo, what's up? I got 2 meters of Worbla, do you want it? And I was like, I've never used it before, but let's go. And then I made that, which is like honestly a mistake, but you know, we have it, so sorry. Okay, yeah, so 2 genres, the sheets of thermo things. So EVA and Worbla both come in sheets that you can cut up, and then you heat it, and once it heats, it gets deformed a little, and then you can mold it to what you want. I say mold, it's more of you can do it in a slight curve. So there's that, and then there's 3D printing. I'm a lot better with 3D printing, and I say better relatively, because there are people who can do like amazing things with 3D prints. I don't do that. I just do good enough, and I'm like, I call it a day. But I can teach you how to, with minimal effort and minimal skill, make your 3D prints look marginally okay. So that's what we're gonna spend most of the time doing, but we're gonna start off with just basics of EVA and Worbla. So the first thing that honestly people don't like tell you how to do online, and what I think is useful, is just how to use these. Yeah, okay, wow, VIP is okay, whatever, it's okay. No one needs to, oh wow, I'm on there, it's on my computer. Sorry, that's okay, don't need that. What was I saying? Yeah, so EVA, Worbla, choosing what to use. You can do anything with any material, to be honest. I am going to say, if you don't consider yourself a crafty person, 3D printing is honestly the way to go, just because there's fewer ways to fuck it up. Or like when, oh, am I not supposed to swear? No one's a child, right? Okay, I'm just gonna swear, I'm so sorry. 3D printing, either you made it or you didn't. Either your printer made a crow's nest of just plastic jumble and it's garbage, or you have a functioning prop. So if you are bad, I do recommend 3D printing. That being said, you can do anything with anything if you are good enough with the material. I find it really hard to be good with Worbla, but you can make amazing things. And also Worbla's sturdier. Okay, so if you want your classic big armor build, I would say go EVA, because it is the most forgiving. If you mess up EVA, it is A, easier to take apart and redo what you messed up, and B, you can just paint over it and it looks better. Worbla tends to deform in a way that you can't paint over. So EVA, once you know that you want to use EVA, you have to choose your thickness. If you can go thinner because you can, I mean, it's just easier in my opinion. But if you're doing a really like hefty armor build, like if you're doing a chonky Seamus or whatever, thick will give you the structure that you want, but it will also curve less, so you need more panels. And also, this is like a sewing thing, honestly. I'm just gonna be a person, if you don't consider yourself a crafty person, I would honestly recommend 3D printing and sewing. People are surprised by sewing. I think sewing is a lot easier than people make it out to be. I also think that there's a really weird gender gap in terms of what people choose to do. This is a whole other ramble, but I find sewing to be more like math, where you put a line, it's either right or it's wrong, and you're done. I find Worbla and Foam to be extremely artistic, and you can mess it up in ways that someone looks at it and goes, oh, you're not very good at this, are you? And I'm like, I'm not. That's how we roll. But yeah. Anyway, sewing will also give you a lot of skills that are really useful for other things, because when you sew, you need to create the pattern and paneling. I hate patterns. I always use my own. So that's also why this looks so garbage, because I patterned it myself. But it gives you a good idea of how to mold things to your body and what you need to make a certain shape. So that's really useful. Anyway, I think sewing's great, and everyone should learn to sew, even if just putting on buttons, because it's really useful. Okay, back to Worbla and EVA. What was I saying? Choosing what you want. If you want something thin and sturdy, like if you want to make vines, if you can imagine like those Pinterest things where it's just like a crown of vines coming off, that is not going to stay that well with EVA unless you really know what you're doing. If you want something that's like a needlepoint thin, use Worbla. It's hard, it's plastic, it's going to stay in a plastic thing. Or 3D print it, which I recommend. I think 3D printing is great, but yeah. If you need stability in a really thin piece, use Worbla. For pretty much anything else, I say use EVA. EVA, you want to be a little bit careful because it can get scratched up. And also, just as a general thing, you probably want to touch up your pieces. Unless you really, really know what you're doing. After your first convention, something's going to go wrong with your piece. Save everything you do while you're doing it. Like if you use a little bit of paint, if you mix a new color, save a swatch of it. Or like just remember what measurements you're not going to remember. Write down what measurements you used to make that paint. You're going to need it later. Okay, so you've decided to use Worbla or EVA, what to do next. So Worbla, like the way I see most people using it is just kind of an extension on top of EVA. So let's start with EVA. You need to pattern out your piece, and this is like the same way you would pattern out a sewing piece, which is you take your the idea of what shape you need to make, and then if you can think about it, you can cut it out and then flatten it. And the way a lot of people do this is with those duct tape mannequin things. You take saran wrap, you just wrap yourself up in the spot you want. You cut it, you duct tape it so that it stays in that thing. You cut it off so it becomes just a creepy ass like mannequin hollow thing that's saran wrap and duct tape around what you needed. You cut it into strips. You don't have to do strips, but strips will be the easy. It tends to work. Strips are easy and they work because it allows for the curve to do. And what that does is that'll give you the shape of the curve needed to create the panels that actually adhere to your body. Leave a little bit extra. Always leave more seam allowance than you think. Always cut further from the line than you think, because what you make is always tighter than you think it's going to be. And you can always tighten things down, but it's really hard to glue more on. Or if you add another panel in, that's the other thing. If you mess up, which you will, and your thing's too small, you can add another panel, but it's going to mess up your fit. You should do it anyway, and then just be sad about it, but it's not worth redoing because you're going to do it a lot better your second time around. Anyway, that's just me. If you're like a perfectionist, you can just redo the whole thing, and like that's good for you. I'm lazy, and I got to crunch. Dude, Oda's so soon. I'm so dead. Okay, so you have your pattern. Okay, the other thing is that if you want something that actually fits to your body, honestly, just sew it. If you want to make a Marvel costume, if you want to make a superhero costume, I honestly say don't even touch armor. It's not useless, but like you don't need it. Also, I really value flexibility in my costume, so I think sewing's great. Sorry, this prop panel is me like talking about the joys of sewing. So EVA foam, you have your pattern. When you glue things together, this is pretty simple. Contact cement. You take it, honestly, I find it useful to let it dry a little bit, like lash glue. I don't know if you guys use lash glue. You know what? Everyone should wear false lashes. I think that'd be great. Like, that should be a bi-gender thing. Anyway, so when you use lash glue, you let it get tacky for a second. I like to let my contact cement get tacky a little bit. I'm not actually sure if people do that, but no one told me to do that, and I like it, so I'm just passing it on to you guys. Anyway, contact cement, let it get tacky, smush it together. If your seams are bad, it's probably because you cut it badly. Sorry, I don't know if that's rude. Anyway, so get an X-Acto knife. You will need an X-Acto knife if you're using EVA. And you want to cut it so that your seam actually lines up. So if your two pieces go like this, you need to cut it here so it's at an angle. And you're gonna need an X-Acto knife for this. Don't be me, be like, oh, I can do that with scissors. You can't do that with scissors. You're gonna die. You're gonna have a bad time. It's not gonna fit well. You're gonna have really gappy seams. I just lived with my gappy seams, but don't be me. So look at your seams, fix your seams if they're bad. Honestly, your first seam will probably fall apart. That's fine. Just let it go, fix it, put glue on again, try again. I like to hold things in place with painter's tape. I think if you have clamps, those are better. I don't know who has clamps. It's kind of a weird thing to have. Or a solder. I guess people have solders. I should get a solder. So you have your paneled out pieces, you've glued them together, you've fixed your seams, and they should look very flush with each other. If you have a gap, you can just put in more, try and squeeze in more glue and then squish it together again. It's gonna look kind of ass, but like you can just paint over it and it's okay. And that's what I like about EVA. It's really smooth, it's really forgiving, and yeah. Hey, yo, that's dope. I need to do that. I should do that. I'm building an EVA thing and I just gave up because I was like, wow, I'm bad at this. I had another thing that I liked, but like, I don't know why that one worked out better. I also like fumigated myself while using contact cement. It's like technically toxic, so you should open a window or something. Or do it outside, but like, you can also just raw dog it. So, pretty much. Wait, is that EVA or what'd you use for that? That's a mood. It happens. Are your shoulder pads also?
This is all EVA foam. The sword especially. I also use some contact cement here for the pommel. This is actually a paint pommel. It's covered up with some foam and the foam putty you're talking about. So yeah, so when you're like, yeah, I don't like armor, I'm like,
Hey yo, it's garbage. I have a video on Instagram about how bad hell yeah it does, baby. It's really weird. Okay, yeah, so the other thing I like about EVA is actually, I forgot to mention this. Do you mind if I? Yeah, okay, so, oh, actually, you did not do these the way I thought you did. Okay, never mind. I like something different about EVA. It looks very cool, though. So, EVA, oh, I guess that gives it stability. Nice. Hell yeah, YouTube's my baby. Always look on YouTube. Okay, the other thing is never do something alone. Always look for someone else who's done it first. This is also how you program, which is how I do my job. Stack Overflow. I've never coded an original thought in my life. Sorry. Okay, so EVA, the other thing I really like about it is that you know how a bunch of armor has like these lines on it and there's just like a bunch of like patterned lines? You just take your X-Acto, you slice it down, and then you heat it up, and it's gonna boop, and it's gonna make a really pretty, really clean line. That does not work with any other material that I found, except like 3D printing, but that's because it's just 3D printing and just prints like that, and it's perfect. I love 3D printing. Anyway, EVA is fine. I like 3D printing more. You can do almost anything. Actually, no, you can't. EVA foam is flexible, so like, if you really, for some reason, hate leather and you want to make like a superhero costume that's adhered to your body, you can use 2mm foam. Okay, this is another thing. No one tells you what actual width to buy. 2mm for like, if you're backing Warbler. Actually, you probably know more. What would you recommend for like thickness of EVA? Yeah. Yeah, so go thinner is forgiving if you can do it. But I know a guy who actually, if anyone wants to buy like a massive armor build for like $50, he's trying to get this thing out of his garage. Talk to me later. He does this like these massive chonky like I don't know Dark Souls or something. It's probably not Dark. I don't play Dark Souls. Hey yo, culture. I don't play Dark Souls, but like I assume that's culture. Anyway, he's trying to sell this thing, so if you want it, let me know. He just wants it out of his garage, his parents' garage, I think. Or maybe it's his. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so EVA is nice for making those designs and also painting. It's smooth on its own. It's honestly really hard to, like, unless you f up really badly, your EVA is going to end up, like, somewhat smooth. So you can literally just paint over it and it's, like, acceptable. Warbler does not do the same thing. Warbler is really nice because it's sturdier and it will, like, you would be really hard-pressed to this shit up. I think EVA, if I went to a con with it, I would, like, bend or break something within the first 5 minutes because I'm bad at things. But Warbler is very hard to mess up. You do it by backing with EVA, though. So if you see this, there's, like, EVA in the back. You still cut your panel, then you take your Warbler, you heat out of it until it's like your tortilla texture, put it on, you back your foam with it, and then you use your foam like you normally would. What's up? Yes, you would want a heat gun, but if you're really ratchet, you can try using a hairdryer, and like sometimes it works. It's pretty ratchet though, I wouldn't recommend it, but sometimes you got nothing else and you're like, hey, I want to try using these 2 meters someone gifted me. Anyway, buy the heat gun. I bought the heat gun eventually. Yeah. Also, okay, the more you... Oh, yeah, what's up? Where do you buy heat gun? Amazon? Home Depot? Where'd you buy yours? Did you buy a heat gun? No. Yep, Amazon. Dude, Joann's is like a scam. I don't know why they're charging so much for every... Oh god, is there someone trying to talk to... Okay, we're good. Yeah, don't buy things from Joann's, or you can, but like, I don't... They have it on Amazon too, which is where I'm buying all mine, and so far I think it's the cheapest, but like, it's probably not, because Amazon is... Oh, Smooge? Hey yo, Dowel's only at Joann's, now I know. Hey, yo! Good to know. I have used like a hair flat iron to like iron on cricket, which is not advisable, but like, sometimes you're at a party and then your thing falls off and you're like, why did I do this to myself? What was I talking about? EVA, Warbler. I was talking about Warbler. Yeah, so nice thing about Warbler is that when it's in that tortilla-like texture, you can sort of use it like clay. Also, something I did not know is that the different kinds of Warbler, black Warbler is smoother, but it cools down faster. You have less of a malleable time. I did not realize this, and no one tells you this online. This is just like random things I learned that I wish I knew before, but like are probably not useful to 90% of people. But the beige one, the ugly beige color, retains heat for a while. So if you want to do some weird stuff with it, like if you want to do... I wanted to roll out things, make little tubes and put them on, but this didn't retain heat long enough for me to do it, so instead I cut strips and made these vine-looking things with strips instead. But I was using beige Warbler before. Also, there's like these beads that do it, which is nice. Also, if you want to slam LEDs in them, they make a transparent one that's really nice to work with, and I would really recommend using that, but I don't have it. But, I kind of wish I did because it looks cool. I don't actually know if it's good or not. I just hear it's really good, so I'm passing it on to you guys. Right, so Warbler, you probably only want to do if you really want stability or you, for some reason, really need like a thin piece that juts out. Like sometimes people who make those corsets that are thin that like do a really weird booby curve and you need something that has stiffness to it and EVA is just not enough stiffness, or you need a really specific shape. Warbler will do that for you. It's going to be bonkers uncomfortable because having plastic right against your skin, especially spray painted plastic, even if you seal it, is still bonkers uncomfortable. But like cosplay's kind of bonkers uncomfortable by itself, so I guess that's just a choice you make. So, yeah. You back it with foam. You move it. The other thing you can do is that if you want like a really specific kind of shape that you can't bend EVA foam into, you can't bend your backing piece into, you can double layer Warbler and then just slam it on and try and mold it to the right shape. This is how people make boob cups. They get like a hard plastic shell that's in a semicircle, and they have perfect semicircle boobs, and I think it looks awful, but like, you know, you do you. And that will give you the smooth surface. The thing about Warbler is that when it heats up, it does deform and it does make bubbles. These bubbles are incredibly annoying, and like if you've ever used clay, if you ever make a pinch pot, I don't know if you guys have like used clay, but it looks rough. It looks really strange. Unless you have the wheel that you can like do things with, your pot looks really fingered. That's okay, well, you know. So this looks pretty fingered. It's pretty obvious where I touched it, and I don't think it looks very good, but that's just kind of how it is if you're gonna raw dog your Warbler. So things you can do to mitigate that. One is that the EVA foam backing does help. You can, if you heat it up a lot and just slam it down, press it really hard into the Warbler will actually adhere. It does have glue on the backing of it, and then it will form with the EVA better and do less bubbles in it. So it'll give you a slightly smoother surface. The other thing is you can, if you have a hard shell backing, you can press the bubbles out into it, and that is honestly the better way to do it in my opinion. But it's really hard to find a hard shell that looks exactly like how you want it to. If you do like your boob cup with a design on top of it, you can have a hard shell half circle, then Warbler, or like hard shell half circle, put foam on top of it, and then press your Warbler around it so you have like a raised design around it. This actually looks really good with really little effort. I would really recommend doing this if you have that sort of raised design, or even honestly any design. I honestly think that unless you're doing like a paint situation, that will look, even if you're doing paint situation, raised 3D tends to look better in real life. So if you want something with a design with a really weird shape, you can double layer Warbler, find a hard shell backing, put foam on top of it, like 2mm thin, 1mm foam in the shape you want, press it in, make sure you press out all the bubbles, and then once it cools, it'll look okay. And then you can like Bondo or Gesso or whatever you primer of choice, sand it out. I hate sanding, so pretty much everything I do is just an attempt not to sand. So it looks great if you do sand. If you want a shiny surface, you should prime it a ton and sand it a ton. But if you're really lazy, wood glue, put a layer of wood glue over Warbler, and it'll get you like somewhat there. Also, this black Warbler stuff, once you spray paint it, I don't know if you guys can see, but I have a like weirdly thick area of this. This is not fully spray painted. I chose this one because it looked bad and I thought it was funny. But once you get a thick enough layer, then it turns shiny just without sanding or wood glue or anything. I was gonna wood glue this, but it didn't come in from Amazon on time. I think they delivered to the apartment next to me, so like that's how it is, you know. I'm gonna yell at someone, I guess. Yell at Bezos. Okay. Yeah. So that is things I learned while using EVA and Warbler that I wish I knew beforehand. Any questions about thermo stuff? What's up? Yes. So honestly, Tainari probably knows more about this than I. Do you want to talk first? Yeah.
If you want it to be silver, you can paint it with silver, and then you can take graphite powder and you can rub it into it, and it'll give it like a perfect mirror finish to your pieces. Yeah, I haven't found any because most of those things, because you want it see-through, I haven't found something that works well other than like the clear warblers. It's called I think it's like gem warbler or something. You can get it in any color. It works a lot better. I have not tried to make shiny gems out of foam.
I must tell everyone, if you don't already know about the wonders of Plastidip. Plastidip is wonderful. Yes, yes. And so it comes either in a spray can or like a little barrel that you can dip things in, and it's usually black. and it will give you a beautiful, shiny surface once it is dried. It's fantastic. I love Plastidip. I used it on this, but it looks better on the other mask that I made. It can take foam from just having a foamy texture to something that looks more like plastic or leather, and it's great. It's great.
I will say that one of the nice things about EVA is that just straight off the bat has that sort of like leathery, semi-smooth texture that is nice for a lot of like big chonky armor. So if you're doing chonky armor, it's straight up good. You can spray it with sealant, and some sealants are glossy, and then if you put a color over that, it will make it semi-glossy. I wouldn't really recommend it, but you can. The other thing is that this is really stupid, but if it's a really small piece, nail polish will give you a nice thing, especially if you do your nails. I don't do my nails, but if you do your nails and you have a UV curing system, UV gel polish will cure to a hard, smooth finish. It's extremely like cursed to do it because no one that I know of has ever recommended putting gel polish onto EVA foam, but I have done it. It hasn't fallen apart yet. So like you got that going for you. One person's done it, but it will give you an extremely hard, shiny finish. Okay, yeah, so that is thermo stuff. Thermo stuff is good for big pieces. If you want to make a full body chonk armor, you want to use big sheets because everything else sucks. The one exception to that I will say is that personally, I think that if you want to make an Iron Man or like something that's like hard shell, like really obviously hard shell, I think you should use 3D printing, but it's going to take you forever and it sucks to do. And also you have to, okay, back to, where do I start? Okay, first thing with 3D printing is that your main problem, if you're doing anything big, is just going to be gluing your pieces together. Like, it's literally not going to be the printing of the pieces themselves. You're going to buy a set. You're going to be like, oh, it's already cut up in the right shape for my printer. You're going to set up your printer. You're going to print something. You're going to be like, oh, ho, ho, I printed it. And you just try and put it together, and, like, one of, like, three things is going to go wrong. One, you're just not going to be able to get them together. Like, they're not going to stick together, and they're just going to fall apart midway. They're gonna like tear, like there's not gonna be enough like rigidity to it, or they're not gonna line up, and that's the most common problem with it. If there's something wrong with your print and if it's not lining up, chances are it's because of your plate adhesion. So I guess we're gonna start off with 3D printer basics. One, it's cheaper than you think. 3D printers are like $150 nowadays. The Creality Ender is really, really good, and I recommend it to everyone, not because it's a great printer, but because it's like $130 at Walmart. 150. I got mine for like 130, but I think it might be 150 now. It's really cheap though, and then filament is like 20 bucks, and then you don't need to buy more for like a year or like 6 months if you're stupid like me and just keep printing stuff for no reason. I print a lot of stuff for no reason, and I just have like, I feel so bad. I'm terrible to the environment. I'm like a single woman environment batterer. Okay, what was I saying? 3D printing, set up your printer, get a friend to help if you want, not because it's that hard, but because you need emotional support. It's like IKEA. I just hate doing it alone. I think it's helpful to have people around. But you're gonna set it up, you're gonna print it, you're gonna go, oh, that's pretty good. Your friend who's a really into 3D printers is gonna come by and say your settings are garbage and your print looks bad. You're gonna say, I don't care, it works. And that's how you should do, and you should never fix your printer again because good enough is fine. But okay, if you mess with your printer, you can get really, really nice settings out of it, and the main thing you can do is detail. You can completely skip sanding if you're good enough. 3D printers work basically like a hot glue gun. It extrudes hot glue, but plastic, in tiny lines and then slowly builds up something, which also means if you really try, you can make something really cursed with a hot glue if you like 3D print it on. I think it's really funny to do that because like it looks horrible and like you can freak out all your friends with it. So that's how the 3D printer works. Where was I going with that? Right, so if you use really small resolution, and you can do this with any, actually let me just show you. So you use I use Ultimate Cura, but oh my god, what am I doing? I don't know why this is doing this. This is a Loki headband, but I didn't model this one, so you know, not my thing. This resolution thing, you can change the quality, and then that's the width of the extrusion. The smaller it is, the better print it is, but also the longer it will take. Also, 3D printers will always take longer than you think it will. This tiny, actually not, one's not tiny. This is a headband. It's really thin. There's not much plastic to it. it's, what is it, 8 hours and 30 minutes. It's printing on my room right now, and it's probably gonna mess up the first time because I'm bad with my printer. So always budget like double the time you think the print's gonna take, because one of them's gonna mess up and you're gonna be sad. So, what is it? If you have, just printer settings again. Always, if it's not a really normal print, like if it's not just on the base and then things coming up from it, you're gonna need support, so always check support. The other thing is that you have a lot of settings to play with, and if you use LEDs a lot like me, you can change the structure of the internals. So normally they use a square. There's a gyroid pattern that isn't useful unless you print transparent. I'll just pass this around. Sorry, there's some like weird filament coming off of that. Anyway, that is something I modeled myself, which is why it looks so, but we'll get into modeling it yourself in a moment because it's really useful and it's not as hard as people think it is. Okay, right, so your main problems are gonna be build adhesion. If your pieces aren't lining up, or if someone mails you pieces, like if you buy pieces online and they don't line up perfectly with each other, their build plate adhesion is bad and they're bad and they should feel bad about selling it, except everyone's build plate adhesion is bad, so like, it's just like that. Except for my friend who's good with it and everyone hates him. So you can fix it with a couple of ways. One thing is that just in general, it's useful to get a build plate you like that works for your setup. I think magnetic build plates are really easy and they work really well for me because it's easy to take things off of them. But honestly, everyone's conditions are different, and the pressure everyone has on their printer tends to be set a little bit differently, so you can use whatever. Putting a glue stick down, like literally before you print, if you really need it to adhere to the base, glue stick all over, it'll help things stay there. And then just playing with your settings. The other thing is that sometimes this warping will happen because as plastic cools, it'll shrink a little, just like most materials, when they cool, they'll shrink. My battery ran out. Okay, sorry. Right, what was I saying? So, what was it? Build plate adhesion, it'll lift on, as it cools, it'll lift up, it'll condense up, and then the edges will curl, and then it won't be a flat surface that lines up with everything else anymore, which sucks, and there's not a good way to do it. You can try and fill it in with Bondo, you can try and like contact cement it all up and then just fill the gap, but it's not great. It still looks kind of strange. You're gonna need a lot of sanding to make it look better. But it's an option, and sometimes that's all you do because these prints take so long that like sometimes you don't want to redo 8 hours just because your thing is a little funky at the bottom. Okay, so those are for big things. I would not recommend printing a big thing. I also am just a fan of sewing large things. I think that if you have a large costume to make, there are very few times in which you want to do it with, I guess you could 3D print it. Yeah, no, there's very few times you want to do it with 3D printing. But what 3D printing is really good at is accessories, and also, hey, I saw that online and I want it, let's make it now. The other thing that's really useful is that there is a lot of kinds of filament. There's like duochromatic filament that just looks cool without you painting it, and also makes you feel better about not sanding your pieces and like not doing anything to them after. So buy cool filaments. I really like transparent filament like that one because you can stick an LED into it and it glows, and I've used that for like, I don't think I have photos. I should have brought something like that. Whatever, that's fine. And that one? Yeah, so that one is actually, there is a really cute elf ear headphones thing on Amazon that I'm gonna look for. What, do I have cringy things? I'm pirating Jujutsu Kaisen right now. Don't tell anyone. Dude, new season, except I'm like not a huge fan of like, dude, Gojo's like, they just really want like, let's make this guy as as possible, but like I'm not into like intentionally, right? Like he's like fine, but I don't know, I'm just not into. Okay, yeah, it's these. I took this and then I have a video about this online, but I screenshotted this. I took it into Procreate. I traced over the lines. Then I took it into Blender. You can import a SVG in Blender and extrude it. And to be very honest, I forgot how I did all of that, but if you look for all these terms on Google, you can figure it out. So the key point to remember is that you can draw a line and then extrude it in Blender and it will turn out fine. Not great, but like fine. And then you can just print this out and glue it on. This is a pretty fast print because it's so low it's like a couple layers. Like the fewer layers you have, the better of a print. Also, like the less chance it will mess up, just the smaller prints are better and the easier prints are better. So this one only took like 55 minutes or something, which as far as 3D prints go is very, very short. So now I could like mass produce these if I wanted to, but I put them on earphones. I didn't bring the earphones, but you can make like these little, I just really wanted earbuds. So yeah. So yeah, key points with this are that Blender is actually really easy to use. One of the main things is that if you have faces, it works through these faces, and then you can extrude faces. If you have a really simple, actually, you know what? Let's just do like a really fast Blender. Oh God, what am I doing? Blender intro, because why not? So let's just make a don't save. Sure. We have a cube. I don't know if you guys can see this. If you can't, I guess you can come up and look closer or something, or just good luck for you. But just to be really fast, extrude, press E, or just look for extrude. All these like fast things, just Google them because you're not going to remember that. I don't remember these. And you can extrude it out. If you press a number, it snaps it to that exact thing. The other thing is that if you want to move it, oh God, what did I just do? Escape. If you want to move something, then you can tie it to an axis, and I would only ever move it one axis at a time, because otherwise you're going to get really messed up. If you're going to rotate something, do it by 45-degree increments, because then you can undo it really easily. Like, once you start moving things off your axes, you're going to get really confused as to what you're doing, and it's going to end up kind of strange. So Blender, most of what you want to do, you can Google pretty easily, but a lot of what you can do, if you don't need something, if you want to make something really low poly and you're really lazy, you have these options of starting with like a cube, a circle, or whatever. You can reshape it, so just size along an axis, turn a circle into an oval. If you want, I made this like weird fish thing because I saw a really specific costume that have a really specific fish, and I just took a sphere, I made it long, I moved some of the edges out, and it made a fish shape, and I was like, good enough. And I printed it out, and it looked fine. So basically, if you need a small accessory, low poly is fine. As long as you get your general shape sort of correct, it's gonna look okay. The only real thing that I think that they don't tell you about Blender that they really should, or actually it's really cosplayer specific, but there's a modifier. It's called a Boolean modifier. And honestly, all you have to do is remember the words Boolean modifier. But is it object constraint? Dude, I actually forget where it is every time, and I have to find it again. Add modifier, Boolean. And what that does is that it can let you subtract another shape from a shape. So let's say you download. And okay, the other thing is just always download STLs because someone's done it better than you. Let's say you download an STL and you want to shove LEDs into it, but there's no hole inside of it. You make a second cylinder in Blender, you move it inside of your existing STL, then you click this Boolean modifier and do subtract, and it'll remove that cylinder from the original STL that you downloaded, and now you have a hole that you can shove LEDs into in your original print, which is really useful and a really good way to spice up anything you've already done, especially because, again, don't make STLs on your own unless they're easy. If it's something low poly that you can, if you see it and you say, I can draw that as someone with no artistic skill, you can make it in Blender. If you see it and you say, I don't know how to draw that, you should probably just buy it from someone else who knows what they're doing. Or you can get really good at Blender and like everyone will just think you're like really cool and awesome, and like also you can make video game assets, which is why I learned how to use Blender, because I was like in this thing and I'm technically a programmer, but no one else knew how to like, everyone wanted the code for some reason, even though they're worse at it than me, and then no one knew how to like make art, so then I just was like, let's extrude a cube, and now I know how to make cosplay props, so I guess that's useful. So when you have that, you have your STL, you move it into Cura, and then you change these settings. The other thing that's really cool about 3D printing is that you can print in other materials. Most people use, PLA and ABS, which are hard. If you buy a resin's really nice. I think resin is the optimal way to print, but it's more expensive, and if you're cheap like me, you have a $150 printer that only takes PLA and technically ABS, and you can shove TPU into it, and it might not die, because I've done it before, and I think it's really funny to do it. TPU is a flexible material. It's kind of like rubber. I think it's really interesting to make rubbery prints. Also because they're flexible, and also if you want to make like this, but if you think this is kind of uncomfortable having a hard shell plastic over here, which it sort of is, I don't feel it, but like, I don't know, I feel like it could get annoying. You can do it in TPU instead. So just remember, multiple kinds of filament, always look for what you can do. The other really, yeah, what's up? Hey, yo. Yo, I've done it before and it hasn't melted yet, but you know, that's probably good. That's good tip. Dude, wait, how hot was your car? God damn. Okay, that's pretty scary. Nice. Yeah, okay. The other thing is that if you print something, there's a chance you're going to think, oh, you know what? I can reheat it up and re-stick it on or reshape it. You're not going to be able to. Like, I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe people better than me can. I cannot. I think it's impossible, and it just deforms the way you don't want it to, or it burns, and like you smell burnt plastic in your kitchen for the rest of the time. Also, my kitchen's seen more cosplay than it's seen cooking, but I think that's just me as a person. Like, that's not a cosplayer trait. That's just me being a degenerate. So you've printed your thing. You can, again, you have pretty much the same warble options. You can prime it, sand it, paint it, seal it, or you can attempt to like wood glue it for like a different kind of smoothness. That's the other thing. If you want to like have a, like if you need a certain shape, then priming and sanding will give you that shape. Wood glue will make it glossy but not shaped, if that makes sense. Like it'll just go on top of whatever ridges you already had and smooth them out, which is not actually like smooth. It's just glossy. So after that, you'll have your smooth surface or whatever you want, and then you have your print. When you are putting a big print together, which if you want to do anything larger than like this, you are, because print beds are pretty small, especially if you're cheap like me, you want to make, like, they'll tell you to put a metal rod inside, and you'll go, ah ha ha, I don't need to get the exact measurements, or I can just glue it on and fill it up with contact cement. You can't. You really need a stiff rod. Wow. You need a stiff rod to provide rigidity and to make sure it doesn't break. And also, you are going to want to go over those seam edges and like sand them out and make them look nice. It sucks. I hate doing it. I don't make big props anymore because I think it's awful, but yeah, you really do want to do it. It's not something you can skip. Okay, so that's two main genres: big sheety things that you heat up and mold versus things that you model on the computer and then print out. If you are a person that just is not crafty and likes to sit at your computer, I would recommend the second. I think it's a lot easier, and also it's a lot more accessible. Okay, I guess it's not accessible because you need to buy the whole ass printer. But like, if you have a friend with a printer, you should just try it, and then you're gonna realize how easy it is to just click print and then watch it print and be like, oh ho ho, what's up? Hey yo, do you know how big their print bed is? Oh no. Yeah, makes sense. And then that's the other thing. If you made your own STL, there's a chance your normals will be f***ed up. I am running out of time, so I'm going to speed run through everything else. What did I even have to say? I've just been like rambling for a while. Wow. Yeah. Printing can be really messed up really fast. And oh yeah, just your first print, if you're doing it on your own, you want to babysit it for the first like 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes is when you know things go wrong for the most part. It is also going to mess up in the middle, but like you can't do anything about that because you're going to let it go as you go to sleep, and that's just how it is. The last thing is just really quick. It's another thing that if you want to get into props, but like you're not like a props person, or you just need something mindless to do while you play D&D, stitching is... This sort of stuff is really easy. I make scale mail for fun. It's heavier than you think it is, even though that's aluminum, and aluminum is like probably the lightest weight metal you can do. You get jump rings and scales, and they're not that expensive. It's really loud, it's kind of heavy, it's a pain to wear, but you can do a lot with it, and you can make it in different configurations. If you do buy some kinds of aluminum, it will leave residue on your skin, so you want to like either seal it afterward, which I don't like because it makes it feel weird, or just wear gloves on top of it. And I think I'm out of time. If anyone's got questions, then like feel free to come up or just like talk to me, because like I'm here. Yeah. But I should probably get out of here and let the next panelist set up. So thank you guys for coming to Kristen's ramble on being bad at things. Oh, also, even if you think you're bad at something, just try it anyway. It's gonna look better than, or like if it looks awful, just don't show anyone and it's fine. Like if it looks great, then like it looks great. And like even if someone else tells you it looks bad, if you like it, that's what matters. I really like all the stuff I make. I think it looks like objectively like technically bad, but I think it looks like, I think this looks dope even though it's technically really awful. So just take pride in what you do, even if someone else tells you it's bad, because like, you know, appreciate yourself. Cool. Okay, thank you so much.